Good afternoon, and a heartfelt welcome to you all here today in this beautiful, beautiful setting. My name is John Matson Higgins, and it is a privilege and an honour to have been invited here today to be Peter's celebrant. Before the service started, I lit a candle of remembrance of Peter. Keeping a candle alight in remembrance signifies that the memory still lives on and burns bright. Sue asked everyone who could not attend today to light a candle at 2 p.m. So by candlelight, we are all connected with family and friends around the world today. We all come together to remember and to celebrate the life of Peter Vincent Ind, who sadly passed away on the 20th of August, aged 93. Today we look back at a life filled with love as a loyal, caring son, brother, husband, uncle, friend to so many people. We also celebrate Peter's creative life, his journey and his achievements. Peter made such a lasting impact on those he knew, and his paintings, writings and musical recordings will ensure that he is remembered forever. As you listen and bring to mind your memories of Peter, do not be afraid to smile or laugh or to cry. We are in a place of safety, surrounded by family and friends. A life lived can be compared to a piece of music. With each action, interaction, adventure, triumph and sacrifice, we add new notes and tunes to the music of our lives. As with any musical piece, we cannot appreciate the meaning completely until the full overture is complete and the last note has been played. We can then hear the full masterpiece of life's work and feel its effect upon us. These are feelings and images and sounds that stay with us all our lives, often for many years after the musician has left the room. I therefore ask you today, as you sit and we share memories of Peter, that we all consider this completed masterpiece of a life and how it affects you. Think also of those memories and sounds that spread from Peter's life, the times you have shared and the moments when Peter made a difference in your life. While you may feel grief during this time, all that love you want to give but can't, Sue also wants this to be a time of celebration and affection. Everybody here knows Peter as a musician and the artist, but it's important that we celebrate the person Peter was. Yes, he was a musician, and yes, he was an artist, but he was also much more than that to so many people. When someone like Peter has the standing and the public profile he has, people forget that he's also a human being. And it's also important that us as friends celebrate this. Peter was born on July the 20th, 1928, to Sydney and to Amy, elder brother of Marjorie. He was not only a son, brother, husband, uncle and friend, he was also loving, supportive. If that's for me, I'm busy. I'm going back into that now.
Sorry.
That's all right. If it's an Amazon delivery, if they can put it behind the gate, that's fantastic. He was also loving, supportive, protective, and fiercely loyal, and a teacher and guide to so many generations of musicians. The reason Peter touched so many lives and affected so many people was due to his dynamic personality, his strength of character, and his sense of fun, and the love he had for all his family and friends. As a boy, Peter had terrible asthma. This kept him out of school a lot and ended up leaving school early because of that. But he was a clever young man. He still passed his scholarship and taught himself to paint and, of course, play music. Piano, violin, and bass guitar were his instruments. He was also an accomplished painter too. As a child, he once had a painting exhibited at the Royal Academy. When he was off school, he loved to walk, and his early work was working on farms. This gave him a lifelong appreciation of nature, life's energy, and environmentalism. Peter cared about the planet before it was considered fashionable and showed in vogue. And he always cherished the outdoors. Peter was 11 years old when the Second World War broke out. He worked as an office boy in London, having a front row seat to the Blitz with all the horrors of war. He was once thrown into a wall from an impact of a bomb going off outside the office where he was employed. He said it made him want his life to be about creating rather than destroying. Peter started playing the piano first and then double bass for the Armed Forces dances. This experience led to him having a job working on the Queen Mary and visiting New York City. Peter lived in New York through the 50s, working as a musician and a sound engineer. The 50s in the New York was where jazz was at its richest, and Peter was smack bang in the middle of that scene. His first gig was at Birdland with Lenny Tristano. Bertie went on to play with legends like Buddy Rich, Coleman Hawkins, Matt Roach, Roy Eldridge, Roy Elby, Wayne Marsh, and of course even more with Lenny. He played one-off gigs with Billie Holiday, Miles Davis, and once Duke Ellington sat in. In the early 60s, Peter married his first wife, Barbara. They had two daughters, Anna and Gretchen, and lived in Big Sur in California, where he painted, undertook research, and wrote about the environment and experimented with improvisational jazz. Sorry about that. Then returned to the UK to live in a cottage in Wales, where he set up the first school teaching jazz in Leeds. He separated from Barbara and established Wave LP Studios in Twickenham in the 70s, where he was able to record, teach and play. These were the days when jazz greats like Lee Konitz and Wayne Marsh were recording cool jazz and playing concerts all over Europe, and Peter was with them playing bass. In the 80s, Peter accompanied another studio in Oxton Square and two jazz clubs, Bassclef and Tenor Clef. Bassclef was one of London's most popular nightclubs, loved by new generations of jazz musicians. Peter would go on to write a book about this. I'd like to invite Claire to come forward, who's going to sing a lovely song, and Julian, who's going to play sax.
I'm going to do one of Peter's favourite standards by Jimmy Van Heusen, Johnny I took a trip on a train. I thought about you. I passed a shadowy lane, and I thought about you. There were 2 or 3 cars parked under the stars, a winding street. Moon shining down on some little town and village. At every stop that we made, I thought about you. But when I pulled down the shade, then I really felt it. When I I peeped through that crack and looked down the track, though I'm going back to you. And what did I do? I thought about you. At every stop that we made, I thought. But when I pulled down the shade, then I really felt blue. Well, I peeked through the crack and I looked down the track, though I'm leading back to you. What did I do? And what did I do? What did I do? Well, I thought about you.
In 1984, the year-based Clef opened. Peter met Sue, his second wife. They had 38 adventurous, hugely enjoyable, hard-working and creative years together. In the 90s, changing economic times and the loss of a beloved club devastated him. But in true style, he set off again. He started with Wave CD Company, building it up to 24 CDs. He began writing, starting with a book about a friend, colleague, and great inspiration, Leonard Sarno. He trained in ceramics, restoring, having been a collector since the 70s, making something good, broken, whole again, treasure no longer valued, discarded china. It seems metaphoric, but it was an endeavour he took to rebuild his life and to put life back into new pottery. For the past 20 years or so, Peter has cemented his legacy as a jazz musician, painter, and writer. He's had painting exhibitions in the US, Caribbean, France, London. He's taught masterclasses and given his students more than an education on how to paint. His writing has been especially about the environment. In 2008, the Environment and Cosmic Metabolism book and the Science of Jazz Improvisational was his main concern, and appreciation of the world around him, the natural beauty and the need to protect the planet. I'd like to invite David.
Peter I knew was cool, he was hip, and he didn't buy the orthodox worldview. And he was strong and authentic as a person, and there was a kind of a spiritual fire and interest in things not seen, and certainly the energetic side of life was so important to him. He's a deep thinker, a deep man. So you've heard a bit about how the environment affected his early life. This is an extract Sue selected from that book. It's been a lifetime study exploring the relationship of Earth and the cosmos. What happens in the cosmos is crucial to Earth and our environment. Space has the function of cleaning waste energy. Ultimately, it's the way energy is renewed and replenished. This is what I mean by cosmic metabolism. But with current pollution levels so high, we're putting too much into the atmosphere, more than it can handle, and the metabolic balance in the earth is severely upset. My paintings reflect this concern with nature and the environment, the energy we can see in the sky, the land and the trees, and the effects of pollution on this energy.
Peter had that unique ability to take all of his interests and intertwine them into one tremendous legacy. From the beginning, when he would walk to clear his asthma and leading to appreciate the world around him, to the end of his life, where he has been testament of determination, hard work, and honoured skill. He will be remembered as a caring and supportive benefactor to the creative world of music, art, and literature. And the tributes here today go to show that. I'd like to invite Peter to
Peter's here. This poem is called Landscape with Figure. It was a favourite of Peter's. This neighbour in Big Sur, California, the poet has written this. And we incorporated into further songs of experience, which was an experiment with poetry and jazz. Landscape with Figure by Eric Barker. An oak tree in a hilly pasture had been his calendar for 20 years. For 20 springs, he watched the leaves come out. As many autumns saw them fade and fall, and earth take hold. Before the cold set in, with axe and saw, he cleared the dead and left the green to thrive. It was an ancient tree before he came, giving a little back each year to earth, until he built close by his house and hearth that grew in winter such a hungry flame. Warm days in summer on a grassy heave, fitting his back like water, he would lie and look through leaves and lichen at the sky, and wonder whether wind or worm would bring some dying limb to fall. Sometimes they hang for years. Perhaps my heart will grow cold first, and a slow sun waste without warmth my winter fuel away. It was a thought that did not fret his mind. One way or other would be well for him, whose love of sun and grass was long and deep, and living close to earth, lived close to sleep, safe in the circle of earth's quiet wheel. The overtaken, tired on pad and wing, from his high acre, every year brought down, he witnessed, and his mind accepted. Though in his heart, as at the fall of leaves, there stirred the sharp and annual lance of pain, and when the dry twigs crackled into flame, chafing his calloused hands before a blaze that burned upon the ash of winter days the west wind had made bountiful for him, he read without much sadness in the fire his own unheralded and small defeat on some cold autumn's end of wind and rain, the dead wood heaped for burning on the hill, the grey dead hearth, the house untenanted, absorbed in death, the oak tree dark and still.
From what we've heard, it is apparent that Peter was just the person you wanted to be near, because you knew he would be positive, would listen, try to help, make you smile and laugh. Peter was an unassuming leader, though he never asked to lead. He was assertive and brave, always standing up for what he believed in. He was our friend. He liked people. He respected their individuality, and he was concerned about our due giving to recognition to everything. He also acknowledged the huge personal debt he owed to Lenny Tristano and the tremendous respect for Charlie Parker, and loved his tribute from Lenny. It was the last piece of music he listened, and we're going to play that now. I'd like Steve to come forward now. Thank you.
Thank you. I kind of feel I'm here representing former students, actually, and also some former jazz club owners, which now sadly seem to come down, who are also musicians, I should say, desperate learners and musicians, which now seems to come down to one. So I've been asked to read this quote from Peter's book, Jazz Visions, as an introduction, as was mentioned, to the tune Requiem, which was written and performed by Lenny. So this is from the book. After Bird died, Lenny really felt his loss. Lenny talked to me a number of times about Bird. He'd always respected him. He'd always seen Bird as the greatest improviser. He often talked about Bird's funeral and the pallbearers stumbling and almost dropping the coffin. Lenny was also a pallbearer along with other jazz musicians. Lenny, who was of course blind, said that he knew intuitively that the coffin was about to drop. As Reisner describes it, by some mysterious and intuitive process, Tristano stuck out his arm at that precise moment and caught it. And Peter continues, Lenny's tribute, The Incredible Requiem, to Bird on the Tristano album is, for me, one of the most moving blues tracks of all times and a fitting tribute to Bird and his music. On the last chorus, Lenny recorded an additional track of right-hand tremolo, which added still further to that sense of awe that Lenny's music could evoke. It was said by coincidence, this was the last piece of music Peter listened to at the hospital on the day he died.
Peter inspired us by example and continues to inspire. Gary Crosby has always acknowledged the incredible impact Peter had on his life, and in turn has gone on to inspire younger generations of jazz musicians. Sadly unable to attend, he has sent the following tribute, which I will now play for you.
Sorry I can't be there today to celebrate with you the great Peter, my teacher and my mentor. His immense contributions to double bass and jazz in a more widely sense, theoretical concepts. It was really Peter that brought to us the idea of singing your jazz solos before you play them. And we used to start singing them collectively, me, him, and I can't remember, it was either Steve Berry or somebody else was in the room at the time. I had a great time with Peter, and also I must say to everybody, the whole idea of Tomorrow's Words was greatly influenced by Peter. The idea that music and art is something to be shared and looked upon as something, one of the higher ideals of mankind. It came from Peter, and hopefully this clip with the youngsters who have met Peter on a couple of occasions can show our love for him. And we're going to miss him madly. Peace out.
Thank you. The great Peter in.
Thank you, Mr. Haynes.
That's who Peter was. In everything that he did, as if the most important thing in your world was the most important thing in his. And it was genuine, a truly remarkable man. Let us take a few moments now to reflect on life with Peter. You remember him in your own way. Think of the road you've walked and travelled together throughout his life. Think of the many experiences you've shared and the joy he brought to your life. Let us now hear in Peter's own words, provided with us for a moment of reflection, and Sue's going to lead us.
Fantastic to see you here. And I'm really pleased you've chaired this. Just as an introduction to Peter's own poem, I'd just like to say we had 38 incredible years under arrest. It was fiery, it was full of life, and it was full of laughter. And I'm so grateful to you for that. So when I reflect on this poem, which I'll now read to you, the things I've got to take is have enthusiasm for life, the most massive enthusiasm for life, because that's all you've got, just this space. And live life to the full, in whatever situation you are, whether you're in a refugee camp or anything, live your life as fully as you can. And if for all of us, in whatever we're doing, just try to be creative in whatever way that is. If it's flowers or art or cake making or whatever, just put your heart into it, because that's the part that's really important. So with that, I'd just like to read one of Peter's poems. It's called Being 92. He wrote it around the time of his birthday on the 20th of July, 2020. Who'd have thought at 92 I would be living in such a weird world? I feel disconnected in a way I've never felt before. Not as a boy with terrible asthma and a difficult father. Not during World War II, trying to be a teenager in those bleak and destructive days. Not when an exploding bomb threw me against the back wall of the office in London. Not even when the US authorities told me I should watch my step when I went to their offices and challenged the jailing for Wilhelm Reich. Not when I was jailed overnight in New York after helping a black guy being dealt with by a New York policeman in 1960. Not even when my bass club went down in Hoxton Square, London, amidst treachery and dirty financial dealings. I felt weird at those times, but nothing like this. I don't feel there's anything I can say or do. I can't register with anyone except Sue. We've been isolated since March. We were told to stay home. But I want to say that at the times of terrible numbers of deaths, we had the most beautiful blue skies. The earth showed us the way. Silence, no pollution, no planes, and it showed so quickly that it can recover from what we do. But only if we stop the greed, the terrible destruction. But who can I tell? And who can tell me when I reach 92 that I may become forgetful of bad things as well as good? And I want to forget this. I want to feel hope. Even at 92, I want to paint blue skies.
The time has come for us to say our final goodbye to Peter and to make our way to Peter's final resting place. This will be a private moment for Sue and for her close family. For those of you who are not attending, we ask that you line the footpath from the chapel just down here for us. Please respect Sue's wishes at this time. This is a private time for her. For those of you who are not attending, we ask that you make your way to the Plough in Rottingdean. Get the beers in, because Sue won't be long and she'll be there. She wants them all lined along the path. Sue and Gary have set up a organisation to help, and it's set up on the Tomorrow's Warriors website, the Peter Ind Memorial Fund. Information on this can be found on your order service. Can I ask you please all to stand?
Ready for your right to line the path. If you go now, follow John if you'd like to be in that pathway. To pass you by. If you'd like to go through, thank you. If you'd like to join us just on that pathway.
People are lining us up for us, so that would be really nice.
Lovely. Does anyone else like to join?
Yes, Julia is back there.
I'll be with you.
So why don't you sit down? It's going to be 5 minutes. That's fine.
Oh,
Are you lining the path for us as we go down?
I see.
There's just myself, my family, and the presenters going down to the graveside. That's okay. But we'll see you all at the plough. Yeah, you go that way and
I
Julia
just
will.
wanted to unlock the car. Sorry. I don't know. It just needs to unlock.
One of them is just going to unlock the plough.